Mayor, you can take over.
All right, good morning, everyone. How's you doing?
All good, I hope.
Good.
Great, great. We have a quorum, I'm being told.
Yes.
Yes.
All right, with that, let's go to call this meeting to order. And emergency action item number one, Mr. Gabriel.
Yeah, Mayor, before we do, just for Rebecca, would you call the rolls to make sure for the record we identify the members who are present?
Okay. I was going to do that. I'm sorry.
Oh.
Would you
Go
like
ahead.
me to do it or you,
Mayor,
Curtis?
do you want to?
Go ahead, Rebecca.
Yeah, go ahead, Rebecca. It's fine.
Okay. Chair Ordis, please say
Yes.
present. Thank you. Patty Good, she gave in excused absence.
She's got a very important meeting.
Yes.
Yeah, school board meeting, emergency.
Yeah, I'm going to be watching that one personally.
Me too.
Chair Emeritus Blattler is not on yet. Commissioner Furr
Not on yet.
is not on yet. Sandy Johnson.
Here.
Thank you. Bill Harris.
Here.
Thank you. Yvette Colburn. Hold on.
Here.
Thank you.
4 members present.
Right.
Can really quickly before we move on, Carl, Ema, if you could contact Commissioner Blattner and help him.
Yeah.
He's having some difficulties.
No problem.
Okay. Anyway, all right, sir. So back to Alan. Alan, you want to go ahead and talk about why we're asking for emergency action?
Yes,
item number one to
we
be
originally
pulled?
had a motion, an emergency action item to allow the executive committee and the board to continue participating through public virtual meetings. The governor last night by his issued another emergency order that extends the virtual meetings authority through the next month through November 1st. So there's no need to adopt or take in or for us to consider the emergency action item. So therefore, that's going to be withdrawn from the agenda for the executive committee and as well for the board. Correct, Greg?
That is correct, sir.
Okay.
So everybody understands? Okay, great. All right, let's go to
Regular items.
Let's go right to the items.
Okay. Regular item. This is actually our time for Holland and Knight. Rebecca, if you don't mind, we can share the screen and bring up our friends from, because there's a lot of things that happened. Lisa and Lori. I don't know if anybody else is on. Nice background, by the way, and nice seeing you finally.
I know.
You know. But just really quickly, there's been a lot of, not only did we get the emergency order last night from the governor about virtual meetings being extended, but also yesterday, big stuff happened in the Capitol. So Lori, you want to, or Lisa, you want to take it away? Or is it Lori?
Lori's on.
Hi, it's both of us. Hi, good morning.
Okay,
Morning.
Lori, go ahead.
So Congress is trying to wrap up a number of things before they leave the election season. They're hoping to wrap things up by the end of this week, and then Lisa's going to tell you a bit about COVID. It really depends on that timing of that bill. They will be out until November 16th. Last night, the Senate passed the CR. The House had passed it last week, and the President signed it to law. This is important because it continues to keep the federal government open and funded, and the continuing resolution will keep the government funded until December 11th. When Congress returns after the election, how we deal with appropriations really depends on what happens in the election. If the Democrats take over control of the Senate, we could very much see another CR and have it until next year, until March. That way, the Senate, under Democratic control, can put its own impact on the appropriation bills. So that will be very interesting. We're not going to see an infrastructure bill this year, but probably very likely we'll see it in the first quarter of next year. Lisa, do you want to give update on the COVID bill?
Yeah. Good morning, everybody. So if you might have heard the news this week, can you hear me?
Yes.
The news this week is that the House Democrats released an updated version of the HEROES Act. If you recall, the HEROES Act was released in May and the House voted on and passed. It was a $3.4 trillion package to provide COVID relief across all the different departments and agencies. So this updated HEROES Act that the House released this week is a scaled down version of what they passed in May. So now they proposed a $2.2 trillion package. It included money for state and local governments, coronavirus relief money. It included over $30 billion in relief for transit agencies, for both formula and competitive type of funding, and depending upon need. The House was supposed to vote on it last night. And what's been happening is that every day this week, Speaker Pelosi and Secretary of the Treasury, Steve Mnuchin, have been meeting to negotiate out this package. And the talks have been going very well. So the House decided to postpone the votes last night in hopes of actually still reaching a deal. Mnuchin has offered $250 billion in state and local relief. Now that's about $186 billion less than what the Democrats want, but $100 billion more than what the White House was offering when these talks failed over the summertime. Steve Mnuchin is looking to have a bill somewhere around, right now, what he's been offering is about a $1.6 trillion COVID relief package. So there is still that kind of gap between what the House Democrats want and what the White House is seeking. So we'll see where they end up today. I think today is going to be the real measure of whether or not they can get this done and over the finish line. So we're all kind of waiting around. We at least feel like this is a little bit more positive than all of the talks that they have been having since May that have kind of failed and fizzled. And so this is their last shot to get this COVID package done before, as Lori mentioned, they recess for their homework before the elections. Any questions about that?
Any questions? Lisa did a good job. No questions.
Thank you.
Can I go back to Lori for one quick second? Lori, did the FAST Act extension also pass with the CR?
Yes, I apologize, Greg. Yes, it's a 1-year extension of the FAST Act until October 1st, 2021.
Okay.
Good, good deal.
And we're hearing, I know, but we're hearing that they're going to start pretty quickly next year on the Senate and House side on getting that bill done. And so
Good.
they'll give us another bite at the apple and getting some additional priorities in there or making some additional tweaks to the House and Senate bills.
Exciting
Yeah.
opportunities for all of us. Go ahead, Lisa.
Yeah, because I was going to mention, with the start of a new Congress, all of the legislation that this current Congress has introduced, so like the reauthorization proposal that the Democrats had, the INVEST Act, that all will have to be reintroduced with a new Congress. And so that's where you have the opportunities to kind of start up again. We were doing great. We got the majority of all of our priorities in for the MPO, but we'll just need to kind of get back to work on that.
With the changeover on the Senate, if the change happens on the Senate side, who would likely become incoming majority leader?
Schumer.
Or no, I'm sorry, not majority.
Oh.
On the transportation side and commerce, I guess it is, where the transit.
Senator, and transit, it would be Senator Sherrod Brown of Ohio, would be the chairman of banking.
That's
And then on the EPW side, which oversees highways, is Senator Tom Carper of Delaware. And I'm hearing that he will just keep the base bill that they passed out of committee last year in July as a base, but we'll start holding hearings immediately in the first quarter of next year on the bill.
Okay.
So that's where our STP and that sort of thing will be included.
Awesome. Okay.
Any further questions? Great job, ladies.
Yep.
Thanks. Good to see you all.
Thank
Nice seeing you
you.
too.
Bye.
Good
Be
night.
safe.
We're on item number 3. I need a raise a hand for approval of the minutes, please. Approval of the minutes. Somebody raise your hand. Hello.
They're raising their hands literally. It's a virtual.
Oh, no, I
repeat.
got it now.
Yeah, okay.
Commissioner Johnson moved the item. Commissioner Harris seconded. Any discussion on the approval of the minutes? All right, hearing none, without objection, we'll approve the minutes. How about the approval of the agenda? I need a motion for that.
Mr. Chair, just as a reminder, as amended, since we did not pass or we chose to pull.
Well, I'm going to bring it under discussion.
Yeah, okay, perfect.
Approval of the minutes. Sorry, approval of the agenda by Commissioner Colburn and by Commissioner Johnson. Now, this is an amended version. Mr. Stewart, you want to comment on that?
Yeah, I just wanted to remind the members that basically, and our Attorney General Counsel is here to speak to this, but the motion to adopt a resolution of the Broward MPO authorizing the use of communications media technology for all BMPO public virtual meetings became moot because of the governor's action at 5:30 last night. And Alan had requested that we pull this at this point in time. Alan, did I miss anything, or would you like to add?
Mr.
Alan?
Gabriel?
Sorry. There you go. Sorry about that. No, Mr. Stewart, you basically covered it. There's no need to go forward with the emergency action item since the governor made that executive order last night. But I do wish to, at discussion later in the meeting, have a conversation relating to voting and how we might intend to proceed through these virtual meetings and board attendance at the MPO facilities as we proceed forward.
Okay, we can do that. All right, on the approval of the agenda as amended, if no one has any objection, don't raise your hand. Hearing none, we have approved the approval of the agenda as amended. Public comment. Anybody from the public want to speak? Hearing none. Action items 1. Commissioner. Mr. Gabriel, I finally got a sleeping pill that worked, and now I'm feeling it.
Okay, so basically we are at action item 1, which is recommend the
Yes,
Broward
right.
MPO
Yes.
approve amendments to the rules of the Broward Metropolitan Planning Organization. And basically, Alan, do you want to go over, because you were pivotal in writing this?
So the rule amendment that's being presented now is simply a authorization, a change of the authorization of the executive committee, which will be allowed now to go, instead of the $100,000 limitation for contracts and expenditures, it's going to be increased to 200. What's being proposed is an increase to 250,000. Anything beyond that would go to the board for their approval. Any authority by the executive director remains at the 30,000, if I'm not mistaken, Greg. That was what was decided. So there's no change to that. So the rules, what's being proposed to you right now is that simply that the executive committee would have that authority to $250,000. And Greg, you can explain if you wish what this justification is and why you believe it makes sense.
Yeah, and thank you, Alan, for that. So basically, what we're looking at is the experiences that we've been learning through the COVID crisis, as well as taking items to the executive in our efforts to minimize the number of full MPO board meetings. The expenditure, we were looking at expenditure amounts, and about 250,000 is about where we usually fall in, that items would have to go to the full board. So we're trying to limit the number of full board meetings and have less of those, and a few more, we're going to keep doing the executive. So that, just because you all will have the authority to pass that, those items would still travel to the full board for their comment as well at any given board meeting as an administrative item. So we're not taking any transparency away from the full board, and all items that go before executive are held within the budget that was approved by the full board anyway. So, that is not limiting their view. It is just for expedient delivery of both these meetings as well as limiting the number of full board meetings.
Okay, any discussion on item 1?
Mayor, if I could just add one point.
Go ahead, Mr. Gabriel.
Thank you. So to approve a change in the rules pursuant to our rule, an amendment requires 2/3 vote of the members present at a board meeting when that comes forward. So had suggested that this be pulled from the consent. You'll see on your agenda that it's on the consent agenda, that it be pulled from the consent agenda and be placed as an action item so that it can be a separate vote for that purpose. And that would be commented to later. But since we're discussing it, I just wanted to bring it to your attention.
Okay, not a problem. That's what we'll do without objection. All right.
Thank you.
How about item 1, sir?
So that's the motion to recommend the approval of the amendment. So the executive committee should vote on that to allow us to proceed.
Hold on, I'm confused. I thought we were going to take it up after.
No. My comment was related to the change in that agenda.
All right.
But for
All right.
today, for this, you need to move it.
Commissioner Coburn, do you have a question or you're moving it?
I just wanted to get some clarity. You said
go
once
ahead.
we approve, when we approve an item, it goes to the full board as well?
This particular item will go straight to the full board for the ratification. The 250,000, and let me ask, did that actually address your question?
It does not. The 250,000 items that we approve, the items that we approve at committee level, does it also go to the full board?
No, it will not. It's an executive, like right now you have, the executive committee has the authority to approve contracts up to 100,000.
Okay.
So once the executive committee approves that, it goes no further. Though it is included as an information item on the board agenda. There is, or board information, we provide that information to the board. So,
Okay.
So this is just an increase to 250,000.
That answers my question. Thank you.
Commissioner Harris.
I was going to make a
Commissioner
motion. I was going to make a motion to approve the item.
All right, and I see Commissioner Blattner. Is that a second or you want a discussion?
Comment, yes.
ahead.
I understand why we're doing this. But I just had a thought that if we're going to raise this limit to $250,000, which is a lot, that it should be more than a majority vote. Maybe it should be a supermajority. This is important stuff. I'd like to see if anybody else feels that same way.
I think that's a good idea.
I believe we are.
Yeah, actually, Mr. Chair, through the attorney, this is actually on the item, when it goes to the full board, it actually has to have 2/3. Is that correct, Mr. Gabriel?
2/3
That's
of the
true,
full
but
board.
I think that Mr. Blattner's comment is that for the executive committee to approve a contract, he's suggesting that it require greater than majority vote for that contract. I thought that was what he had suggested.
Right.
Yes.
Okay.
I agree with that.
Yeah, so
Okay.
I don't want to make sure we're not confusing apples to oranges here.
Yeah, because I was about to get confused.
Yeah, a rule amendment does require a 2/3 vote of the board, full board. This time-
Dick, I'll second that amendment if you do that.
Yes,
Hold on. I do have a motion already by Commissioner Harris. I'm looking for a second.
I'll second
Motion
it so I
to
can
amend.
amend it.
All
Okay.
right,
yeah.
Commissioner Furr seconds it. Now, on the amendment, would somebody like to make a motion to amend the item?
Motion to amend to require a 2/3 vote of the executive committee.
Thank you. And a second?
I'll second that.
Second. Okay.
So that would
Discussion?
be, if I can just clarify, that would be 2/3 vote of the members present.
Correct.
Okay.
All right.
Make a
Further-
difference.
Further, everybody understand? All right, further discussion? All in favor, if you're all in favor, don't raise your hand and we'll be in favor. Does that make sense with my pill?
Any
Okay.
opposed?
Approved
Okay.
without exception, yeah.
All right, so I see that it is approved unanimously. Thank you very much. And
Excellent.
it's approved as amended, Mr. Gabriel. the motion.
Yes, sir. And there's 6
Okay.
members present, yes.
Okay. Item 1, review and discussion of the October 8th agenda item.
Okay, like all agendas on October 8th, we basically start with the approval of minutes, agenda, public comment, and approval of excused absences. We have several items under consent. The first one is a extension to the Trip Scott Erics Consulting LLC for state advocacy. The contract was approved for 5 years with, well, 3 years plus 2 one-year extensions. So the project manager has asked for the extensions to move forward. The second is an interlocal agreement between the MPO and the city of Lauderhill for transportation planning services. This is for them to be able to access the Transportation Planning Technical Assistance Program, also known as PTAP. The third item is motion for the amendment of the rules. That item, as discussed just now, will be moved to an action item to the board. It's going to come out of consent, or we're recommending it come out of consent. Motion, then the fourth item is motion to adopt a resolution supporting transportation policies identified in the Southeast Florida Transportation Council. Commissioner Furr, this is the board that you sit on. And so it's actually moving forward with those items. Then we got any questions on the consent agenda and the modification?
No question.
Just remind me, let's see. I know we had talked about a lot of things at SEPTEC last time.
Mhm.
I guess I'm wondering, I need to read this more carefully. Is there anything in there? Go ahead.
This is actually just carrying the resolution forward that we're supporting the actions of SEPTEC.
Okay.
Correct.
That's fine. All right.
All right. Do we need an action item?
Okay, no, then we're going to move into action items. So the action item, we'll be bringing down the amendment to the rules into the action items. That'll probably end up being action item 5. Action item 1, which is a very important thing for us to do, is the roll forward report, which with our staff recommendations, this is the difference between the July state budget year and the federal budget year, which started today. So the continuing resolution that Lori and Lisa were talking about continues our funding, and so that provides the gap between those time periods. The second item is the PTAP program awards. Basically we had an application period similar to CSLIP, and we're moving forward with all the applicants that submitted. That will allow the MPO, working with our municipal partners, to continue to do joint planning on specific projects. The third item is it was an RFP that we issued for the continuation or third phase of the Speak Up Broward public engagement contract, and it was awarded to Tyndall Oliver. That was a competitive bid that was put out to the public for everyone to be able to respond, not just to the library. And they're the winning firm out of the firms that were submitted. So we're just recommending moving forward. That was already budgeted in the UPWP that was approved by the board for our July 1 budget year. Motion to adopt a resolution of the MPO for the conflict resolution. We had that discussion at our last executive board meeting. So this is now moving forward to the full board initiation of the 164 conflict items. Does anyone have any comments on the action items?
Where are we on number 4?
Mr. Gabriel.
We're right here.
Commissioner, we're
I like this, Bill.
We're no place different than we were the last time we met. There's been no communication from the county at all regarding this issue. We're still sitting where we are. So that's the reason we're bringing it forward to start the process. It's a very long and a laborious procedure that we're going to be entering, but we have no choice but to go that route.
Okay, Commissioner Furr?
And there's still an issue?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
County, there's been discussion about our contractors are being told that they cannot participate with if they do surtax work, they can't participate with any other work if they work with the MPO. With the county, we're told the same thing. The issues are what they have been from day one with no changes. We haven't even gotten responses to what we had proposed as alternate changes to this. And the county commission adopted what you adopted.
And Commissioner Furr, just to add to this, the city, we've had a financial impact by the decision of the county to move forward with its language. The city of Fort Lauderdale has zero funded our contract, our 5-year contract with them. That is an immediate fiscal impact of about
How
$600,000.
surprising that is.
Yeah. That was an immediate fiscal impact of $600,000 on an annualized basis, spread out over a 5-year period. So, you know, there is immediate impacts by county actions. And
What did Fort Lauderdale decide to do instead?
zero funded the contract. Whatever they decide to do, they decide to do. Our contract has no money.
Did they go back in-house? Is that what they did?
They have not advertised any positions.
They're going to have to fund any positions out of their general fund budget.
Correct, sir.
So they're taking the money and just going back in-house.
If they
Presumably,
can
we
find
don't know.
people to do it.
Presumably,
out.
yeah, we'll find out together, but, you know, the direct impacts to the organization are the issue. And we had already had staff and, you know, moved forward with equipment and staff for those positions. So now we are going to be looking at trying to figure out how to rearrange our budget so that way the impact to the particular staff members that were under that budget category can continue to have employment.
If I may, Mr. Chair.
Who's that, Mr. Kalitka?
Yes, sir. I do want to point out to Commissioner Furr that it was injurious to Fort Lauderdale as well, because not only are they going to have to hire staff, it's not that they don't have to spend the money to the MPO, but they do have a buyout clause so they're going to have to do both. They're going to pay us for a portion of that contract, and they're going to have to hire their own staff.
All right. Everybody understand? All right.
Okay.
Sure.
Who is that? Raise your hand.
Blattner. I did.
No, you didn't. I'm looking at your hand's not raised.
She's looking at electronic.
Commissioner Blattner. Go ahead, Commissioner Blattner.
Yeah. Look, Greg and I had a little conversation yesterday about the role of a county commissioner being on the MPO Executive Committee Board. Mostly the thought, or at least I'll speak for myself, the rest of you can speak for yourselves too, is that we wanted to have a county commissioner on the executive committee, more than just to represent the county commission, but to be able to go back to his colleagues or hers and say, this is what the MPO is doing or thinking of doing, and I wanted to get your input. But that's really only half of it, and we never thought about the rest of it being that the county commissioner that attends the board meeting, that is appointed to the executive committee, also has an opportunity and a responsibility to share his or her thinking about what the what the county commission is thinking. This is a perfect example of this conversation that just ended, where my friend Commissioner Furr had no idea what's going on with the county as it relates to the MPO. I'm not trying to put my friend Beam on the spot here, but this is a very dicey, edge of the cliff issue. And I'm speaking now of the relationship between the role of the county commissioner on the MPO as having two heads. On the MPO executive board, county commissioner. I'm disturbed by the fact that county commissioners don't seem to know what their administration is doing and what its impact is on the MPO and the 31 cities that the MPO represents. So it's a lengthy statement, but I'd like to open it up for discussion.
Would you,
Commissioner Furr?
I'm happy to respond. Actually, we do know what's going on. And we do recognize that we recognize the conflict. We are concerned with the conflict because we want to make sure that all the surtax money is divvied out fairly. And
All you had to
that's,
do was ask that question. You didn't have to sue anybody. You didn't have to
All
go through
right,
this. All
Commissioner
you had to do was
Blattner,
say,
Commissioner Blattner,
explain it.
let the
Sorry.
commissioner.
I know.
so, so the idea, I mean, I think the point is trying to make sure that I think we all recognize that the MPO has some very valuable services to offer to cities. The question is whether or not there is a thumb on the scale with regard to if there's a surtax planning being done, and then on the other hand, it's being rated higher. There are some guardrails in there, and Greg and I have talked about those, especially with the, I forget what it's called, but you can only get so many here and there. So we are aware of that, and I keep seeing language. I've seen language go back and forth for months and months now. I have not seen the last iteration of that. So when I speak to that, because it's been maybe a month or so, I just saw something go out from Bertha regarding ILA, the second ILA, of which all the cities have you've probably received that, correct?
I have been participating in this discussion with with some of the city representatives, city attorneys.
Okay.
There was
There's an ILA that just went out from Bertha.
well, it wasn't, we didn't get the ILA, but we got
No, sir, we did not.
information sheet that was proposed by Angela Wallace to the city attorneys that basically was trying to identify the issues that just came out. There's a discussion that's being scheduled for tomorrow. When I raised with Ms. Wallace the conflict issue in that conversation, she said that this is not the time or place to have that conversation, and the language in this new Second Amendment does not address anywhere the conflict issue. So we're nowhere different than we were before as it relates to the MPO. Look, I don't, Commissioner Furr, I simply don't take this procedure, the 164 procedure, it's not an easy procedure. It's going to be difficult for all of us. All the cities are going to be participating in it and be asked to be members. There's going to be requirements and a lot of expenditure that is unnecessary if we would have just resolved this between the two entities. But we're not in that position. And I have not even received notice from the county attorney's office that even told me that the county commission adopted the conflict language officially. I know about it because we've been watching what's been going on, but we have not had any communication at all. I mean that seriously. There has not been any positive communication with regard to this subject matter since before the adoption in August. Late August was when the county commission adopted the language that we're referring to now.
Right.
And Commissioner, just and this isn't a pile on, for you. I just want to avoid that.
I got big shoulders.
Yeah. So, basically, I want to also say, Alan said there's been no positive communication. There's been no negative communication. There's been no communication. The new ILA or whatever the hell that you guys are proposing or the county administrator has proposed, there was never a draft provided. There was just no conversation whatsoever. We have done, everything that we have done in front of our board members in a sunshined ability. When Alan and I participated with the county attorney several months back with the Bertha conversation, Bertha didn't even turn on her camera. So there wasn't even any type of physical type of, hey, this is what I'm thinking. There was no indication of that. There was never a discussion of what guardrails we have in place, why you have a concern about, potential conflict with the MPO. I did ask that let's just end the contract with the county because I think that there was no response to that. There has been no response to anything other than chirpy little responses from county administration, not directly from the administrator, that go a tete-to-tete on issues that are actually irrelevant. I'm more concerned because of what we saw through the adoption of the 5-year plan, as well as the recommendations we made. And since we have removed surtax funded staff and move them over to the MPO budget. What I have been learning in conversations with our team members that were communicating with the county is there was a lot of abusive behavior that was happening, and they were told what to do and when to do it and what was acceptable to the county and what wasn't. If you were truly utilizing the MPO to provide a list, an objective list that wasn't influenced by anybody, then I would actually say, all right, let's have that conversation. However, the conversation that you're having with saying that we have a conflict, but because the county staff not only has its thumb but its entire fist on the scale of the recommendations that we're actually making, then it isn't a balanced conversation at all. And so to say that the MPO had some effort with one or two particular cities in providing, even though we have our own safeguards, so things do not have that appearance of conflict for every one of the members because of how we give out federal dollars, the reality is this weight of city or county staff on what the recommendation was from our members, from our staffers, is a direct conflict. And it's because of the payment from the county to the MPO to provide those services. So, you know, we have to really, if we're going to have a real discussion and it's going to be serious about what conflict actually looks like, that is a huge conflict right there. Because I don't think it's appropriate for county staff to be telling our staff, this is appropriate, this is what we want, this is what we don't want, because that's influence right there. And that's influence because of payment. I can just, you know, sit there and have that discussion with any attorney you want. And it's not a business decision any longer. This is a contemplated way of dealing with the way the surtax is being administered. Frankly, I don't think that it's appropriate. I'm glad we're not doing anything right now. We're going to look to go forward with a contract with this if the county continues to engage the MPO in the ranking with a consulting firm, because if they're going to be directed on this is what is going to be and what is not going to be from county staff, then that's a county staff decision at that point, and let them deal with a consultant, not an independent entity that actually is supposed to be doing planning work. That's just my perspective on this. Mr. Koleka, I know, has been trying to work with county staff. He's the new assignee to, you know, deal directly on the municipal efforts. And I can tell you that I also bear witness to, I've been copied on emails that are extremely inappropriate from county staff, because as an independent entity, we should be making statements that are, they don't have to agree with the county staff. And that's part of what we were hired to do as this independent group. So there is other issues going on here, you know, beyond the lack of communication on the 164 agreement, you know, the 164 process. There are actually huge flaws in the system that's in place. And that is a really bad thing. It really actually is. And,
Well,
and go ahead, sir.
Go ahead. I mean,
I apologize.
these are big issues, and as you can imagine, the county has to be very careful with how they deal with the surtax. You know, for this is taxpayers' money, and there are cases going, you know, in the court right now that are keeping surtaxes, so like in Hillsborough, you know, they're negating those. So the county is having to be very careful in how it proceeds to make sure that it's fair and equitable. And so maybe the 164 makes sure we're all doing it right. Maybe that kind of mediation is okay. I mean, if it's going to go through all that in such a way that, you know, we're all clear. I don't know. I'm happy I'm happy to go back to the our county attorney and find out where we're at and try to move things along.
I think that's a good idea, Commissioner.
as I think I've been doing on a regular basis.
And we appreciate you.
Yeah.
And just so Commissioner Blatt, just for Commissioner Blattner's, just so he knows, and I think Greg and Alan, you guys can back me up on this. on a regular basis, I've been kind of trying to move this along. I have not, and I will say that for the last month, because I didn't, I actually thought I didn't have to be in the middle of it, but happy to do it again and go from there. That's kind of where, that's kind of where it's
And
been.
we appreciate that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mayor, if I
Commissioner-
could just make one more comment, because I want
Go
to
ahead.
make sure that Commissioner Furr is aware of this. Once the board adopts the resolution that starts the 164 process, by statute, the MPO is required within 5 days to submit letters and identifying to the county and to all the participants, which from our perspective includes every city in Broward County and potentially other governmental agencies, and put them on notice as to the issue of the 164. And then we only have 30 days in which to schedule meetings of all those participants. So that will happen as of next week is when that process begins. And then we lose all control because it's all under statute as to what happens.
Well, let's
So-
hope Commissioner Furr can go back and we can go with positive.
Yeah, so this will be a discussion item on next week.
On the board meet, yes, sir, by the board.
Okay.
All right.
So I will try to see what I can have ready to go.
Thank you.
Commissioner Blattner, final question?
Yeah, no, it's a statement, sorry. Commissioner Furr, you made the same observation at the last meeting that the county wanted to make sure there was equity, I'll use that term, in the distribution of funds.
Yeah.
All they had to do was ask a question. MPO, tell me how the distribution is done in an equitable manner. That would have been so easy, so friendly, and so cooperative. And now we're at a 164. So I'm not blaming anybody except that we're the recipients of a lot of stuff that could have been a letter from Bertha to Greg or from Alan to his counterparts or whatever, instead of getting where we are today. It's just a question of how people operate.
Okay.
So
All right, we
I'll
got
leave it
it.
at that.
And I'm a firm believer of partnership. Let's be partners.
I
Mr.
agree.
Gabriel,
Yes.
can I take all 4 items under one, or do I have to go individually?
And Mr. Chairman, this is just me going over the agenda for next week. So
Yeah, there's no approval. Unless the executive committee has an issue or question, there's no
we're good.
approval. It moves forward to the agenda formally at the end of the meeting.
All right. How
Goes to the
about
board.
Mr.
Colloquial.
This pillow's working.
I want to know what it is, because if I can't sleep, sounds like a great thing.
Amitriptyline. I just
Okay,
I took too many. Okay, non-agenda items? Greg?
Okay, so basically, past the items that we just discussed, then the non-action items are the mandated performance measure targets. It's a presentation, a report from partner agencies, which is the major project updates to the Florida Turnpike Enterprise. And then our partners at Port Everglades will be presenting the master plan, vision plan that they have for the next 25 years to build out the port, which, that's a very major thing for us as we move forward with all of our freight planning efforts and public education programs in that area. And with that, that would conclude that meeting. And then after this meeting is over, we have a workshop for the board members to attend. You can choose to participate or not, on how we're doing funding. This goes back to the surtax as well, because, the MPO has other funding programs that we administer. And that's going to be important for everybody to see. Commissioner Furr, I'm sorry, this is a whole nother one that if we were having proper communications, the MPO with the Department of Transportation was paying for CEI and design for our federal projects.
CEI is what?
Construction, civil engineering inspection.
Okay.
So basically what the big issue that we're facing in those two areas is the Department of Transportation has requested that we no longer do that, and that burden falls to you and the municipal partners, because it also affects Broward County. One of the things that would have been nice if the surtax conversation was in a different place is that's something the surtax should probably fund with the local governments. to allow them to build their projects as they see and need to be fixed. Because it is clearly a transportation purpose because it's DOT, it's FDOT money. Well, it's actually US DOT money. So you can't argue that that's not a transportation project. So, you know, there is some things that, you know, if we were having different type of discussions on partnerships, as the mayor alluded to, you know, it's how you do partnerships. I think that that's an area that would have been helpful. So we're going to be working with your team members, you know, and, you know, hopefully as we move forward. And then I'm also going to be, just for the full board's knowledge as well, Brian and I are moving forward trying to find other ways to fund that as well, even with MPO attributable dollars. But we're going to have some time and conversation with the Florida Department of Transportation on that. So that's going to be, you know, a hot issue that we're going to be discussing over the next probably 2 to 3 years as budgets dwindle. And, you know, we anticipate, and Lori and Lisa didn't get into a great detail, the reauthorization bill that could come out of a Democrat Senate and a Democrat House to a Democrat president would end up having hundreds of millions of more dollars for transportation projects. And the county surtax right now with MPO money is pretty evenly split on how much goes to our local government partners. The 10% minimum and the MPO attributable money that goes to our local partners are pretty much even. However, the MPO, and this is one of the things you'll see in the workshop next week, the MPO funding is actually greater than county funding when you actually factor out the cost of running the community shuttle program. So Brian is going to present that information to the committee or to the workshop. And that number will probably be greatly enhanced by a new administration in Washington and a new reauthorization bill. So we're not talking discretionary dollars. We're actually talking about money that will be flowing to the MPO to provide into our transportation system. So those are some serious conversations. We somehow together have to get out of the sand trap of this conflict that was created and have these discussions on where transportation is going to go in the future, because our roles are intimately linked together.
Yep.
And that is something, you know, all 31 cities, the county and the school board with the MPO and Florida DOT are all intimately linked with US DOT. And that conversation, we have to be on the same page constantly.
Okay. All right. Listen, I have an offer to make. I have a sand wedge, and I know Commissioner Furr is a great golfer. If you'd like to borrow it, certainly can.
I could use that one.
There you go. There you go. Get us out of the sand trap.
It is a trap.
Commissioner Johnson, do you have a question?
Yes, but not about that though. I was having a question about the presentations that we're going to have at the meeting.
Yes,
and I
ma'am.
was wondering when, you know, this has to be coming from me, but when the 10th Street people are going to be coming back to the MPO with a presentation of what their newest brainstorm is.
Okay, if it's okay with everybody else to build on that conversation, can we get off of the agenda? Does anybody have any more? And then we can go, because this ties to virtual meetings and everything else.
All right. All right. Without objection, we'll move off of the subject.
Okay.
Mr. Stewart, go ahead.
No worries. Mr. Chair, thank you very much. So basically, we had an item on for us to actually have the discussion about going to virtual meetings and allow for us to have virtual meetings. The governor, got ahead of us, we were ahead of the governor, and now the governor did his announcement last night. So the emergency item that we had was to allow us to use Zoom as a platform for voting. All the way back to Commissioner, the commissioner's comments about 10th Street that's coming to us in December. It's the work program. And, basically they're going through the process right now to do the public hearings that they are required to do through the federal government for the 10th Street project. And even though, our district secretary has used the word carnage in describing the work program because of the $3.5 billion hole that has been created because of COVID in the transportation funding side on the state side. not on the federal side, but on the state side, this project is staying intact, is being recommended to move forward as a design, build, and go. Let's get this done, the 10th Street. So this is going to be at our December meeting. The reason I have been talking with our attorney and Brian at length about being able to virtually vote or have a hybrid meeting is we want to make sure all of our I's are dotted and our T's are crossed. So when we adopt the work program and the folks that might oppose the 10th Street connector, the Sawgrass connector there, that way we have all the legitimate legal background done in a checklist. So that way, if there is a potential challenge, that those challenges can be dismissed. So with that said, what I've asked the attorney to do and we'd like to get your clarity and permission, is we'd like to be able to, we can hold 14 members safely, or meeting CDC guidelines, I can't say safely, meeting the CDC guidelines at our facility in December. And that still, we have typically about 25 to 27 members present at any given meeting. So what I'd like to be able to have the attorney do is have an emergency resolution to allow for, once we meet quorum requirements for sunshine, that we can have the rest of the board participate via Zoom for a vote. Because right now our rules do not allow you to call in. Alan, do you want to talk about this at all? Or
So I do want to back up a little bit, Greg, because in the meantime that we started, I've had an opportunity. By our rules, we already have virtual meeting authority when there's an emergency situation or conditions that have been issued by the federal government or our governor. So that's the condition in which we're presently under, and we're proceeding that way. And our rules also identify that in that case that we can have virtual meetings and set up our virtual meeting procedure pursuant to a process that's provided within our MPO board website. So we're meeting that. That's not an issue. But what we're also now talking about is that if you recall that our rules do not allow for any kind of communication outside of direct being present at the board meetings. For example, telephonic participation is not allowed under our current rules. So if we leave the conditions that we're in right now, we go back to what our rules provide. So what Greg is now talking about is really a combination of the emergency conditions and going back to a position now that instead of just telephonic participation, we would be allowing for communications of a different nature, particularly Zoom communication. So the question becomes, from our perspective, we have some issues associated to voting. The quorum would need to be present at the board location at our MPO facilities. Then we would be able to participate or allow for, presumably, participation of our board members, of our actual members, whether they're alternate or the full members, to participate and vote through that electronic means. And we would then figure out what the vote is and advise you as to that condition. So we'd have to establish a procedure for that. So one of those procedures would be that we have to be able to verify that the person that's voting is in fact the person who's expected to be voting. In other words, we would make sure that we visualize you or know that the board member is in fact the one making the vote. So that would mean we would end up having, presumably, roll call votes for every item. If you fail to respond when you're called, you would be deemed absent for that item. And that's how we would address that.
Okay, I think that's fair.
So that's the way that's the understanding that we're proceeding. Now the question becomes whether or not we want to do that beyond the emergency conditions and do it in the future. I'm going to suggest to you, let's try it. We have the rules already that allow us to do it. I just got to adopt procedures now to apply what we just said. And then if we see that it works, then we could modify our rules to allow us to do it in the future as well.
I personally think that's a good idea.
That's the discussion I wanted to really have to see if there's any
Commissioner
thought on the
Johnson,
board.
you have your hand up for a question?
That was from the question that I just asked.
Okay.
I have
Mr. Blattner?
You called on me again.
Yeah.
Let me know. If-
Hold
if-
on. I'm sorry. Commissioner Johnson, you had something else?
Yeah, if you were to go ahead and say that people could continue to Zoom in from home after we go back to some degree of normalcy, how's that going to affect the small cities and the fact of us voting? Because wouldn't that mean more people would be attending if they didn't get
Yes,
dressed
presumably.
from Fort Lauderdale?
Yeah, presumably
Mr. Gabriel?
we would have, yes, presumably that could impact the small cities because we would, remember, we only have 25 voting members that count. But what we would do is that we would still take a roll call vote of all members who are participating. And then we would back out from that, those whose votes don't necessarily count, but the small cities or everyone would have the opportunity to be counted for the particular item. And we would have to do the formal vote pursuant to the statute that limits us to 25 voting members.
Okay. Commissioner Blattner?
Yeah, I want to follow up on, I think, what Sandy was suggesting, and that is if we have to make sure there's balance here, and that 14 people that might be able to attend physically, somehow or another, we have to, I think, determine a system of who are those 14 people, whether it's first come, first serve, or
Well, that's part of the
first come,
discussion that we're
first
having.
serve. Pardon me?
That's
You
part
agree,
of the
Mayor?
discussion that we're having.
Okay. The second part of it is, I disagree with you, Mayor. I think that as soon as we can do open meetings, we need to do open meetings. We're already meeting less often than we did before. I think there's an awful lot to be gained by face-to-face contact and people being able to see each other. And you don't get the same sense when I have to raise my hand to be recognized, and I don't know how many are ahead of me and behind me. And I'm not criticizing the way you run a meeting, Frank. I'm simply saying that the moment that well, we're friends. The moment that the governor says we can have open meetings, I want to go back to open meetings.
I don't blame you. I favor that. Well, that's what we
Okay.
have to see. That's what the discussion's all about.
Yeah.
So,
All right, Commissioner Colburn.
okay.
Yes. Can you hear me?
Ken.
Yes, I just wanted to chime in on this discussion as well. I think open meetings have, we have a lot to gain by being in person. Clearly, it is ideal, but having that choice or that opportunity for us to be able to meet virtual, I think it's good. I do see the challenge of ensuring that there's that quorum there before others choose to not attend a meeting and be virtual. So that does seem like it's a bit tricky. I would hate to have to cancel meetings, just because everybody is online instead of having the 14 people that we need there. But I certainly like the opportunity to be able to continue meeting like this on occasions.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Gabriel, where are we?
Yes.
Where are we?
Actually,
Okay, so Greg, did you want to add or?
yeah, I do. I because this is an important discussion, as Alan has been saying, right now we know for sure that we can hold 14 board members on the dais, meeting the CDC requirements. In the room physically, we could potentially have up to 26 members in there, meeting the CDC requirements. However, they'd be in the back in the audience area, separated on tables, and I couldn't guarantee that their computer equipment and all that would be working to allow them to participate in the way that we're used to participating, and the way that we can participate via Zoom. So, basically, we would, no matter what, if we go to this hybrid version in December, where we could have, meeting quorum, we're at 11, right? Alan, is that quorum? I think?
14.
14. So 14. So basically, we would
I need
need to.
14 people in the room, and here's the problem. If any of those 14 people walk away, we lose the ability to take actual, votes.
Exactly.
Virtually or whatever. So whoever's there needs to be committed to being in that room when, for the whole meeting for that purpose.
So, And so, Mayor, basically the way I'm looking at this is saying, okay, we would need to have those 14 people. Yeah, we're going to be there. We're going to guarantee to be there. I'm hoping that it would be the executive committee members plus a few others in the balance, but we need to know they're going to be there. Unfortunately, what we can't have and is a member that shows up late and leaves early, and then walks off. So,
Well, I think everybody's going to understand that.
yeah. So, this is, if you choose to move forward with this and the discussion goes that way, then basically Mr. Koletka, myself, and Mr. Ronskowitz with both Rebecca and Carl will be reaching out to the members to say, in December, can you physically be here to sit and go forward with the meeting? Because we need to make sure, one, we maintain that quorum for sunshine, and two, that all of our T's are crossed and I's are dotted, so that way anything that's passed that day is not challengeable by any type of proceedings. And that we'll need to revisit again in February and whenever the next meeting may be.
Let's see where we are. Mr. Gabriel, what are we voting on?
Yes, sir. So what we're voting on is what I'm hearing from those who have discussed it is that there is a willingness or desire to adopt a hybrid version, allowing for under the emergency situations only that we've identified, it already is allowed for by our rules, to allow for continuing virtual meeting of the members and also the public. The public would be able to participate as well if they chose to, which is what we presently allow for. And so it won't necessarily require a rule change to do it this way. It only requires us to outline the process and procedure internally and then put that on our website. That would allow for that. So
All right,
if we
you
do
heard
that,
what's
yes, go ahead.
You
Sorry.
heard what's before us. So Commissioner Johnson, are you making a motion?
I just have one question. Is this going to be forever, or is this this is just during the emergency situation?
Mr. Gabriel?
Okay, right now we're only talking about during the emergency circumstances of COVID. As long as there's and I perceive that to being, as long as there is a CDC public health concern or order that's outstanding, or the governor, even when the virtual meeting was going to be terminated by the governor, he still has the emergency order in place requiring certain things. So we still fall within that. So it's not just going to end come November with the presumably the virtual meetings order expiring.
Good.
We'll
Commissioner Johnson, are you making a motion for that?
No, I was asking a question, but I can make the motion for it.
Go ahead.
I'll make a motion for.
All right, is there a second?
Okay.
All right, Commissioner Colburn seconds it. Further discussion? Hearing none, if I don't see a hand, we have approval and unanimous approval. I don't see any hands. Mr. Gabriel, you're on.
Yes, sir. So Greg, the understanding then is we'll create a procedure and we'll bring that forward for discussion at the virtual board meeting. Is it next week you want to discuss it, or?
Yes, next week. It'll replace the emergency item. Basically what I'd like to do is make sure that the board members are comfortable, and then hopefully at the meeting, it would be very wonderful if you all could self-select the 14 members that would be present in December. I believe Commissioner Furr had a comment, Mr. Ortiz, and then to Brian Koletka.
I don't see Commissioner Furr's hand.
He's physically using his hand.
Oh.
Well, a finger and thumb.
I can't see that, sorry. Commissioner Furr?
Yeah, just real quick. The South Florida Regional Planning Council just did this exact same thing. And they went through the legislature to get it approved so that we could have people be able to call in and it allowed to be as a quorum. So there's precedent. So there's precedent.
Good. All right, further discussion. All right, Mr. Gabriel, where are we?
So we're moving, any other items on the agenda? Any other discussion items?
Brian's trying to sneak in there.
What's that?
If I may, Mr. Chair, I would strongly urge that we choose, it's because I'm a panelist, I don't have that.
Okay, go ahead.
I would strongly encourage that we pick 16 physical members to be present for the reason of, if somebody has a temperature, we're not going to admit them. It would not be right to do so. So if you only have 14, you won't even have a quorum from that point forward. If somebody is very, very late or gets into a car accident or has a family member with a concern, it gives us at least a 2-person cushion to maintain quorum.
Everybody agree
Great
with that?
idea.
Yeah,
All right,
and
Great idea.
it's a wonderful idea.
All right.
We
All
can
right,
accommodate that, Greg, right? 16?
Yeah, I just got confirmation from the team right now. There's all these other things happening in the
They can sit
background.
in the audience.
We'll
Exactly.
rent 2 more chairs. Okay.
Okay.
All right, everybody. Thank you. It was a great meeting.
Hold,
Thank you for
hold
all
on,
your help.
Frank, question. We have a 1 o'clock.
Raise your hand.
My hand is up.
Go
Frank,
ahead, Commissioner Blattner.
we have a meeting at 1 o'clock this afternoon. It's voluntary, but I don't have any sign-in information for that. If
Next week.
Brian
Yeah.
or somebody else.
And unfortunately, I can't make that meeting. I'm sorry. I got a conflicting meeting.
Yeah, that's fine. It's actually next week, Commissioner Blattner. So
Oh, it's next week.
yeah,
Okay.
it's after the regular board meeting. And
Okay.
it's what just to share with everybody. I'm sorry, Mayor, just to do this a couple more seconds. What this is the first time we're beta testing the meetings that we will be having when we're not actually having the MPO board meeting on that Thursday, the second Thursday. So this is just to do a dry run with everybody, presentation on how it will look. So in the future, in let's say January or February, if we're not having a board meeting, there'll be a workshop where we'll be bringing forward items for the board members to listen and participate in should they choose to.
Great.
And it'll be virtual.
Good. I think this was a great meeting. Thank you all for your cooperation as usual. And we'll end the meeting now. Thank you all. Have a great day.
Thank you.
Thank you,
you.
Frank.
You
Go
too.
back to sleep.
Bye.
Have a good one now.
Oh,
I
Thank
still
you,
like you,
everybody.
Beam.
Greg,
Oh, I hope so.
Aw.
Greg.
I used to love you. Now I
Yeah.
just like you.
Oh, I can understand that.
All right, everybody.
Hey, Greg and Brian, if you could stay on
Yeah, Rebecca, if you don't mind ending the
the recording.
See you guys later.
Michael,